Hello everyone, it's Robin the Delta Crafter, and I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be making a card featuring a familiar ghostly gang from a popular Halloween animated movie. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start off by using the die set that gave me the inspiration to make this card. This is the Build a Layers Ghost set from scrapbook.com. And it's the ghost in this die set that made me want to recreate that popular scene from It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create that in a card. The first thing that we're going to need to do, though, is we're going to need to create our background. When I pulled up an image to reference, I noticed that the background kind of looked like it was created with watercolor. So that's the technique I'm going to kind of use when I'm creating my background. I'm using a piece of distressed watercolor paper. I'm going to show you that in just a minute here because you're going to be able to see the texture. And I'm also using several different colors of distress ink in blues. So we're going to start out with this tumbled glass. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do ink smushing. And so I've just pressed my tumbled glass ink pad onto my glass craft mat. And I spritzed some water on that ink, which made it really react and move like paint, like watercolor. And so I'm just smushing my paper into the into the ink to get that first layer of color down. I'm starting with that tumbled glass, which is my lightest color or shade of blue that I'm going to use for this background. And I'm just going to continue to build up layer on top of layer of all these different colors. So I got that first initial layer of tumbled glass down. Then I went in and applied a second layer. Again, because we want to get that build up. We want kind of all these different colors, these shades of blue to kind of be peeking through different pockets and points in the background. And the best way I know how to achieve that look is to just continually dip into paint. I've moved on to Uncharted Mariner, which is a beautiful blue color, guys. If you don't have Uncharted Mariner, you really need to add this one to your stash. It is a very unique shade of blue, but you can see here that it's going to add beautiful texture and color to this background. We're going to darken things up a little bit with this prize ribbon. And again, we're just tapping our paper into the ink that we've turned into a paint by adding some water to it. The water reactivity of distress inks and the brightness of the colors are two of my favorite properties of these inks. These are the inks that, if you've been following me for a while, you guys know these are the inks that I reach for all the time. They are my absolute favorites. So in order to get that really dark night scene, I'm coming in with some black soot. And I did go ahead and spritz quite a bit of water onto the black soot because if I didn't, I felt like it might have overpowered all those different shades of blue that we worked so hard to get. So I did water that black soot down quite a bit. Now I know this may seem contradictory to what we did, but now I'm just going to come in with some unicorn white pigment ink from Hero Art. I'm going to add some splatters all over our inked up background. This is going to give us the appearance of stars in our night scene. Yes, we started with white paper and then we just added a little bit more white to it, but we needed those stars in the sky. I am over the moon with how this background turned out. Another thing that I noticed in the picture that I pulled up for reference is there was a lot of perspective that was used in this special. One of the ways that they used perspective was with the size of the moon. If you look at the pictures of this scene, the moon is large in comparison to the characters that are in the scene. So I pulled out my moon mask from Holtz, and I didn't use the largest moon because that would have just been too much, entirely too much. I actually ended up using the smallest moon, which will turn out to be the perfect size for this A2 size card. So I went in and put down a layer of squeezed lemon because I want my moon to kind of glow a little bit. I put down a base layer of squeezed lemonade. And then I'm coming in with Lost Shadow, which is, I believe that is Tim's latest, most recent addition color to the Distress Ink family. And it's a very light gray, which makes it perfect for creating the craters and the dimension and depth of the moon using this stencil. Now notice that I'm going inside the cutouts in the stencil, but I'm also going along the outside of the stencil as well. So when I pull that stencil back, you can see I have a beautiful moon inked up there, using those two inks to create that depth and dimension. So I wanted to cut this moon out. So I brought in the Nested Circles dies also from scrapbook.com. We're going to be using quite a few scrapbook.com die sets for this card. And I found one that was similar to the size of the moon, and I decided to use that circle to cut out my moon so I can add it to my card panel later on. So I just used a piece of Easy C tape to hold my my die down, ran it through my die cutting machine, and now we're ready to move on. So that A2 size piece of cardstock that I used for the moon, I'm going to use the rest of that cardstock to cut out several ghosts from the ghost die set. I end up having three ghosts on the card. I cut out way more than that, but I did go ahead and layer up some of them, 2 of them actually, to give the ghost a little bit of dimension and thickness. I just wanted to build that ghost up a little bit more. So I'm just gluing 2 ghosts together. I'm going to lay them under an acrylic block and let all of that adhere together. So while the ghosts were under that acrylic block, I went ahead and cut out a lot of the little eyes for the ghost. I'm going to be conscious of how I put my eyes together. Again, when I looked at the picture for inspiration and for reference for this, the eyes of the ghosts were not straight on because the ghosts were looking kind of as a side profile. So you want to put your eyes more towards one side of your ghost rather than at the very front. Now we know that in this cartoon, one of the friends has a mishap as he's cutting out the holes for his ghost. So he's represented there by having all the extra holes in his ghost costume because he never could get it right and ended up having a lot of holes in his ghost costume, which I still think is so adorable. Let me know in the comments below if you watch the It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown every year like I do. So off camera, I went ahead and dug through my stash and found a pumpkin. And then I used the Autumn Leaves set from scrapbook.com to cut out some leaves in a couple of different shades of green. We're going to layer up these leaves and these pumpkins to create our pumpkin patch. And how I'm doing that and making this a lot simpler for me is I just cut out a piece of a strip of black cardstock. And now I'm going to figure out and glue down figure out how I want them laid out and then glue down my leaves and my pumpkins on this strip to create that pumpkin patch look. So I'm just going to go through the different colors of leaves as well as the pumpkins and kind of just put them in and layer them up so that it looks like a pumpkin patch. If you've ever seen pumpkins on the vine, you know that there are a lot of leaves that are on pumpkin vines. So having a lot of leaves on this strip really, really creates that pumpkin vine effect. So now that I've gotten all my pumpkins and leaves glued down, I'm going to put that strip under an acrylic block and make sure that everything adheres nice and securely to that black strip of cardstock. So now we're at the assembly stage. We're going to go ahead and kind of dry fit our pumpkin patch strip here. And then now I'm applying some Artiste glue to the back of that strip, and I'm going to glue that down to my background panel. You can already see this scene starting to come to life. Look at that background. Man, I'm just really, really pleased with how that background night scene came together. So I'm going to take my ghost and I'm going to slide them behind our pumpkin patch. And what that's going to do is that's going to play with perspective as well. It's going to make it look like the pumpkin patch is in the foreground, and it's going to recess or kind of push our ghost back into the background a little bit. So I wanted to pop up one of the ghosts to give some more dimension to the card. So I'm just using some foam squares and applying those to one of the ghosts. I'm just going to pop that ghost up a little bit on the card panel. To add to the perspective that's going on in this card, I don't want all my ghosts to kind of be at the same height. So that first one that I glued down, I'm ending up pulling that one up a little bit, pulling it up from the background and moving it up just a tiny bit. I still want the bottom of his little ghost costume to be behind the patch, the pumpkin patch, but still a little bit higher than that middle ghost. And now this ghost, I'm going to push up a little bit higher than the other two. So they're all kind of at different heights. Slightly, it's not great, not a great distance between them, but it's enough to give you can visually see the difference in the perspective that's created. So we're going to hide our slide, rather, our moon up under our panel, our pumpkin patch as well. So that it looks like the moon is kind of rising up from the ground. Securing everything back in place. To make this ghostly gang even cuter, we're going to add this tiny little trick-or-treat pail to the ghost in the front that's closest to the moon. This little trick-or-treat pail is a part of the ghost die set from scrapbook.com, and I just think it is absolutely darling. So we're just going to secure him down and add him to our card panel. I decided that I wanted the moon to sit up just a little bit more, so I'm going to pry it up really, really gently, and then I'm going to put the moon back in place. You can just barely see the bottom of the moon tucked behind the pumpkin patch. So now we had a little bit of overhang from the pumpkin patch little strip that we made. So I'm just going to bring in a pair of scissors and trim off all the excess pumpkin patch and leaves and pumpkins to make our panel nice and even. And now we get a final look at what our card panel looks like. The very last thing we have to do is attach our card panel to our card base. The card base is made from accent opaque 120-pound weight cardstock. And I'm just going to pop this panel up with a little bit of foam tape for a last little bit of dimension. And once I secure this panel to my card base, this card is complete. I want to thank you all for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. I hope you have enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments below if the weather in your area has started to cool down enough that you can start thinking about fall and Halloween and Thanksgiving. All of the products that I used today will be listed and linked below in the description box, as well as a discount code if you would like to pick up one of these glass mats for your own craft room. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel to join the Delta Crafter family. Be sure to check out my playlist on my channel as well. I hope you have enjoyed this video as much as I have enjoyed sharing it with you. And until next time, everyone, enjoy!